The sky above the hidden leaf foliage tears open like parchment set aflame. Naruto Uzumaki stands at the epicenter of devastation, his body wrapped in the incandescent orange shroud of Kurama's chakra, every fiber of his being screaming defiance against an enemy that threatens to erase everything he loves. His friends are behind him, bloodied, exhausted, barely standing. And he has made his choice, the only choice he has ever known how to make, to protect them, no matter the cost, no matter the impossibility. I won't let you take them. The words rip from his throat, raw and absolute, as he channels everything, his own chakra reserves, already depleted beyond reason, and Kurama's vast, primordial ocean of power, a force that once leveled mountains and drowned civilizations. The Nine-Tails energy floods through him with apocalyptic intensity, chakra and will fusing into something that transcends technique, transcends ninja arts, transcends the very laws that govern his reality. In this moment, Naruto Uzumaki is not performing a jutsu. He is becoming a statement written in pure, unyielding determination. No one dies here. Not today, not ever. But the universe has limits that even friendship cannot ignore. The collision of human resolve and tailed beast magnitude does not simply release energy. It ruptures the substrate of space itself. Reality, stressed beyond its tensile strength, fractures along invisible seams, and through those cracks, something else reaches in. Not an enemy, not a technique, an entirely different dimension. Its metaphysical architecture fundamentally incompatible with the shinobi world. Drawn to the anomalous power signature like a magnet to lodestone, Naruto feels the ground vanish beneath his feet, not falling, but erasing, as if the coordinates that define here are being overridden by elsewhere. His last conscious thought before the void swallows him whole is a desperate silent scream. Sasuke, Sakura, everyone, I'm sorry. Taverley, late afternoon, the 23rd day of the month of Guthix. The forest is peaceful, in the way only ancient sacred groves can be. Druids in earth-toned robes move through clearings, where runestones hum with the slow, patient frequencies of nature magic, their chants harmonizing with birdsong and the rustle of oak leaves. White knights in polished armor patrol the perimeter roads, their disciplined footsteps a rhythmic counterpoint to the wild's organic symphony. Prayer points regenerate at altars, blessed by Sardomin. Runes are carefully harvested from essence, and the world tree's distant presence pulses through ley lines like a heartbeat written in green light. Everything in Taverley exists according to the ancient, unspoken contract that governs all of Gielinor. Power is mediated, channeled through runes and prayer books and skill levels, structured and predictable. Then, the sky breaks. The rift manifests without warning, without the telltale shimmer of teleportation magic, or the geometrically precise edges of a dimensional anchor. This is a wound, a screaming ragged tear in the fabric of reality itself, bleeding colors that do not exist in Gielinor's visible spectrum. There comes a presence so dense, so alien in its composition, that the ley lines beneath Taverley's soil recoil as if burned. Naruto Uzumaki crashes into the world like a meteor wrapped in a storm. The impact crater blooms outward, ancient oaks uprooted and flung aside by kindling. But it is not the physical destruction that freezes every druid, every knight, every creature within a mile radius. It is the energy. Chakra erupts from the epicenter in rolling, spiraling waves, orange and red and gold, colors that sear themselves into the retinas of anyone unlucky enough to witness the arrival directly. It does not behave like magic. It does not respond to the runic framework that underpins every spell, every prayer, every enchantment in Gielinor's long history. It simply is, self-sustaining and self-determined. A foreign physics asserting itself with the casual violence of a flood bursting through a dam. The druids carefully maintain ley-line convergence, in excess of natural magic that has anchored Taverley's spiritual ecosystem for millennia, flickers and distorts. Prayer altars nearby pulse erratically, their connection to serotonin's divine frequency, stuttering, as if something is jamming the signal. Rune essence in storage pouches vibrates with discordant harmonics, and more than one mage standing near the hardbore shots feel their spellbugs go inexplicably heavy, as if the very idea of structured magic is being challenged. At the center of the devastation, Naruto staggers to his feet, his body still wreathed in residual chakra. The Nine-Tails cloak flickering like a dying flame, painting the scorched earth in shifting orange highlights. His blue eyes, wide, feral, with adrenaline and confusion, sweep across a horizon that is utterly, catastrophically wrong. No hidden leaf village, no familiar mountains, no friends, no enemies, just an alien forest filled with medieval architecture, armored figures who carry themselves like knights from a storybook, and rogue strangers whose hands glow faintly with energies he cannot identify. For a single terrible heartbeat, Naruto Uzumaki, the boy who never gives up, who always finds a way forward, feels completely, utterly lost. But instinct, honed through 1,000 battles in a lifetime of protecting others, overrides disorientation. His stance shifts automatically into defensive readiness, chakra coiling beneath his skin like a spring wound tight. The words that leave his mouth are hoarse, demanding, shaped by the only priority that has ever truly mattered to him. Where are my friends? What do you do with them? The druids do not answer. They are backing away, hands raised not in aggression, but in warding gestures, as if Naruto were a plague given human shape. The white knights draw their rune longswords and dragon scimitars, with the crisp drilled precision of professional soldiers. But their formation is hesitant, uncertain. They are trained to fight demons, dragons, and heretics, not this. One elder druid, his face weathered by centuries of communion with Gothic's fading will, steps forward with trembling courage. His voice is thin, cracking under the weight of what he is witnessing. What manner of being are you? You bear no mark of the gods, no signature in the anima mundi, no trace of runic encoding. You are not of this world. Naruto's confusion deepens, his fist clenching as Kuroma's chakra flares reflexively in response to his rising frustration. I don't care about your world. I need to get back. My friends are in danger. The druid flinches as if struck, because the energy radiating from Naruto intensifies with his emotion, not drawn from a pool or mediated through skill checks, but generated, an inexhaustible wellspring tied directly to his will and a primordial force coiled within him. To the druid's trained senses, this is not merely powerful, it is impossible. It is a violation of the fundamental law that governs all magic in Gielinor. Power must be earned, structured, balanced, and ultimately answerable to the cosmic ledger maintained by the elder gods. This boy, this anomaly, answers to no ledger at all. And as the chakra-tainted winds sweep through Taverly's sacred groves, carrying with them the scent of something utterly foreign, the disruption ripples outward through channels both physical and metaphysical. In the White Knight's command post in Falador, scrying orcs flicker with corrupted data. In the Grand Exchange, information brokers suddenly receive garbled contradictory reports of an unlogged entity materializing in a low-traffic zone. Deep beneath the wilderness, where ancient Majarot convene in their frozen fortresses, seers snap their heads toward the south in unison, their millennial focus pierced by a single jarring note in the cosmic harmony. Something has entered Gielinor that was never accounted for in any prophecy, any divine scheme, any carefully balanced equation of power. Naruto Uzumaki does not know this, does not understand the existential panic his mere presence is triggering across a dozen institutions and power structures. All he knows is that he is alone, in a place that feels fundamentally hostile, and the people he has sworn to protect are beyond his reach. So he does what he has always done when the world becomes incomprehensible. He pushes forward. Chakra surges through his legs as he prepares to move, to search, to act, because standing still has never been an option for Uzumaki Naruto. The White Knights tighten their grips on their weapons. The Druids begin chanting defensive words that they already suspect will fail. And somewhere far above, in dimensions of consciousness that mortals cannot perceive, the gods of Gielinor turn their vast, terrible attention toward Taverley. The orange-haired anomaly does not notice their gaze. He's already running, leaving a trail of displaced air and crackling chakra in his wake, searching desperately for answers in a world that has none to give. Behind him, the crater smolders, a wound in Gielinor's skin that will not heal cleanly. The ley lines around Taverley will never quite align properly again, forever marked by the moment of foreign power, unchained, ungoverned, and utterly incompatible, touched down upon the ordered earth. News travels through Gielinor the way it always has, through whispers at bank booths, coded exchanges between merchants, and the nervous gossip of soldiers rotating off patrol. By the time the sun sets on Taverley's smoking crater, 3 different versions of the story have already reached Lumbridge, each one filtered through the cognitive frameworks that Gielinor's inhabitants have spent millennia refining. The Druid's initial report, panicked, fragmentary, transmitted via messenger raven to the White Knight's headquarters in Falador, describes an unidentified entity of unknown origin and catastrophic disruption to natural ley line convergence. But by the time this information cascades down the military hierarchy, through officers trained to translate mystical jargon into actionable intelligence, the language has shifted. The entity becomes a rogue adventurer. The disruption becomes excessive AoE damage. The complete failure of druidic wards becomes resistance to nature-based magic. This translation is not malicious. It is necessary. The alternative, accepting that something has entered Gielinor that does not fit into any known category of threat, would require dismantling cognitive structures that have kept soldiers, mages, and administrators sane through demon invasions, god wars, and elder god awakenings. The mind does what it must. It bends the incomprehensible until it resembles something familiar, something manageable, something that can be killed with the right combination of gear and prayer flicks. By the time the information reaches the Lumbridge guard captain, a grizzled veteran of pest control waves and goblin skirmishes, Naruto Uzumaki has been fully domesticated into existing threat matrices. High damage output, possibly ancient magic's user, suspected skull in wilderness, daggily carrying valuable loot. The captain reviews his available forces: 20 guards equipped with RuneScape bodies, dragon longswords, and a handful of Saradomin brews. A few low-level adventurers loitering near the bank, eager for easy bounty gold, perk up at the news. Standard containment protocol, the captain announces, his voice carrying the confidence of a man who has never encountered a problem that couldn't be solved with superior action economy. Tether block on sight, protect from medi, DPS rotation. If he's carrying high-tier gear, we claim it for Saradomin's coffers. If he resists, we tag him for wilderness PKers. Either way, he's processed by dawn. No one questions his assessment. Why would they? Gielinor has been running on these systems for so long that the systems have become invisible, as fundamental and unquestionable as gravity. Naruto arrives at Lumbridge's outskirts 3 hours after his crash landing, moving with the ground-eating speed of a shinobi who has crossed nations on foot. He is exhausted, disoriented, and operating on pure adrenaline and desperation. The foreign landscape, rolling green hills, medieval stone bridges, and possibly blue water that seems almost painted in its artificiality, only deepens his sense of wrongness. But he is not alone anymore. As he approaches the town's edge, figures emerge from the tree line and castle gates. Armed figures, hostile figures. Their stances are aggressive, weapons drawn, but Naruto's trained eye immediately catalogs something strange. They move with coordination, like this is a routine. Halt. The guard captain's voice rings out with bureaucratic authority. You are hereby detained for an authorized dimensional breach, destruction of protected natural sites, and suspicion of carrying illegally obtained high-value items. Surrender your gear and submit to inventory inspection, or we will use lethal force. Naruto's hands rise, but not in surrender, in confusion. What? I'm not trying to fight anyone. I just need help. I need to find a way back to... The guard captain nods to his mages. Teddy block, now. 3 mages step forward in synchronized precision, their hands already glowing with the purple-black aura of the Teddy block spell. They chant the incantation, ancient syllables that have sealed the movement of demons, dragons, and rogue adventurers for generations. The spell matrix resolves, law runes and chaos runes consumed in the casting, and the dimensional anchor slams into Naruto with the weight of a small moon. Except, it doesn't. The spell completes. The mages feel the familiar pull of power leaving their bodies. See the animation resolve. Watch the purple tendrils wrap around the target's form. But there is no lock. Naruto stands there, chakra still flickering around his body, completely unaffected. Not because he resisted the spell, but because his existence does not interface with the dimensional registry the spell is trying to anchor. To the mages, it feels like casting Tether Block on a concert, on the wind, on a philosophical argument. The spell resolved, but the target simply wasn't there in the way the spell expected. What? One mage stares at his empty hands, then at his spellbook, then back at Naruto. That's impossible. Tether Block always... Phase 2. The guard captain's voice cracks slightly, but his training holds. Protection players, combat positions, melee north, range south, mages spread for multi-target. On my mark. The prayer icons flicker to life above the guards' heads, glowing symbols that represent Saradomin's blessing, overhead protection from melee damage. The familiar interface of survival that every Gielinorian fighter has internalized since childhood. Naruto sees the symbols, but doesn't understand them. His sage mode perception, however, does register something. A subtle shift in the guard's energy flow, a channeling of power from an external source, creating thin barriers of divine frequency around their bodies. Interesting. Defensive technique, but thin. So very thin. The first volley comes in a coordinated burst. Arrows from the south, fire spells from the east, a charging guard with a dragon longsword from the north. In Gielinor's combat system, this is textbook execution. Multi-angle attack forcing the target to choose which overhead player to activate, creating guaranteed openings for damage. Naruto doesn't choose. Chakra explodes outward in a rotational barrier, the same technique he has used 1,000 times to deflect kunai, jutsu, and tailed beast attacks. The arrows disintegrate mid-flight, burned to ash by the sheer intensity of the energy field. The fire spells, blood rune fueled, capable of melting through dragonhide armor, splash against a barrier like water thrown against a bonfire. The runic structure unraveling on contact with a power source they were never designed to interact with. The charging guard, mid-swing, with his dragon longsword, connects with Naruto's raised forearm. The blade, forged in dragonfire, enchanted to cut through demon hide, stops dead, unable to even scratch the chakra-reinforced skin beneath. For a frozen instant, the guard's face registers absolute incomprehension. Then, Naruto moves. A Rasengan, compressed, rotating chakra, molded in his palm without staff, spellbook, or incantation, slams into the guard's dragonfire shield. The shield, designed to tank attacks from the King Black Dragon itself, shatters. Not dented, not cracked, shattered. Fragments of dragon-forged metal exploding outward like glass struck by a sledgehammer. The guard flies backward, crashing through 2 of his companions, all 3 crumpling in a heap of bent armor and disbelief. Impossible, someone whispers. There's no ability name, no combat XP drop, no damage calculation in the... The Wilderness PKers arrive 20 minutes later, drawn by emergency signals and a promise of high-value loot. They are a different breed from the Lumbridge guards. Harder, more experienced, veterans of the eternal deathmatch that is Gielinor's most lawless region. They have killed adventurers carrying billions in gear. survived ancient magic barrages that could level buildings, mastered the tick-perfect timing of eating food while switching prayers in milliseconds. They look at the scattered Lumbridge guards, the shattered dragonfire shield, and the orange-haired boy standing in the center of the carnage, and they see Prophet. Full aggro, the peak-hair leader commands, his voice cold and tactical. Ancient magic's rotation, gap close with Braj, spec him down. He's probably low on prayer points after that display. Standard rush tactics, move. The peak-hairs fan out with practice efficiency, their movements honed by thousands of hours of player versus player combat. Ice barrage erupts from 3 angles simultaneously, magic designed to freeze targets in place while dealing catastrophic damage. An ancient consort wielder charges from the flank, building adrenaline for a special attack that can hit for over half of most adventurers' total hit points. Another PKer chugs a Saradomin brew while simultaneously switching to protect from magic. The tick-perfect execution of combo eating that separates elite PvPers from corpses. Naruto's response is almost lazy by comparison. Shadow clones explode into existence around him, not summoned from scrolls or requiring rune expenditures, simply created through an act of will and chakra manipulation. The ice barrage spells hit their targets, freezing them solid in blocks of magical ice. But the targets are clones, and the moment they shatter, more appear, each one indistinguishable from the original, to every scanning spell and identification technique the PKers possess. Which one? There's no combat level indicator. I can't target the right. PKR's panicked voice cuts off as a clone's fist connects with his jaw, the impact sending him spinning. The ancient Galthard wielder activates his special attack, a devastating blow that should delete a significant portion of the target's hit points and drain their combat stats. The massive blade comes down on Naruto, the real Naruto this time, and connects squarely. Or rather, it connects with Kurama's chakra cloak. The blade rebounds as if it had struck a mountain. The PK's hands go numb from the feedback shock. His successful hit, registering 0 damage because Naruto's defense isn't calculated through armor rating or pair bonuses. It's raw condensed energy that simply negates attacks below a certain threshold of power. What is his defense level? The PKer stares at his combat interface, which is returning error messages instead of damage calculations. There's no stat that would. A rising shuriken forms in Naruto's hand, larger than the first one, crackling with nature chakra that screams at frequencies painful to hear. He hurls it, not at the PKers, but at the ground between them. The explosion is not fire or ice, or lightning in the way Gielinor understands elements. It is dissolution. Microscopic blades of wind chakra that tear apart matter at a cellular level. The technique that bypasses armor, pair, and hit points entirely by attacking the fundamental structure of physical existence. The PKers who don't teleport immediately are caught in the outer edge of the blast. Their armor, rune, dragon, even pieces of Bao's equipment, develops hairline fractures that spread like spider webs. Their health bars plummet, not through conventional damage, but through systemic disruption. Their bodies recognizing on a biological level that something has just tried to make them molecule by molecule. The ones who do teleport successfully find themselves 5 miles away, hand shaking, health potions spitting from nerveless fingers. One pulls up his friends list to send a warning message, but the words refuse to form. How do you describe what had just happened in terms that make sense within Gielinor's combat system? High damage? No, it wasn't damage. It was wrongness. Unknown ability? No, because abilities have names, have cooldowns, have adrenaline costs. Hacking? The thought surfaces and is immediately dismissed, because this is reality, not a game. And yet the very fact that the thought occurred reveals how deeply Gielinor's inhabitants have internalized their world systems as game-like rules rather than physical laws. The merchant princes and information takers who control Gielinor's economic bloodstream are not warriors. They're analyzers, pattern recognizers, arbitrageurs, who profit from knowing what items will surge in value before the market realizes it. Their power is not magical, but informational, and the information networks span the entire known world. Which is why the reports flooding in from Lumbridge and the wilderness are so deeply, fundamentally terrifying. Shattered Dragonfire Shield, confirmed by 3 independent witnesses. A broker reads from a ledger, his voice carefully neutral. No visible weapon used, no rune expenditure detected. Target's hands were empty. Another broker, her fingers flying across an abacus, adds, 17 PKers engaged, full ancient magic slowed out, combined gear value approximately 4 billion gold, 0 confirmed kills on target, 4 shields destroyed, 11 armor pieces critically damaged, estimated replacement cost. That's not a problem, a third broker interrupts, his tone sharp with an emotion they rarely express, fear. The problem is that Dragonfire shields are falling in price, already down 8% in speculative trading. If word spreads that they can be destroyed by an empty-handed attack from an unknown source, the implications ripple outward through the mental frameworks of everyone present. The Grand Exchange's economy is built on scarcity, difficulty, and the perceived inviolability of top-tier items. Dragonfire shields required killing the King Black Dragon, one of Gielinor's most dangerous creatures. They are supposed to be ultimate tier protection, the kind of gear that marks an adventurer as serious, elite, worth respecting. If they can be shattered by a bare-handed attack, an attack that costs nothing, requires no rare drops, and can apparently be performed repeatedly without resource depletion, then the entire hierarchy of gear progression collapses. We need to frame this different, the senior broker finally says. If this becomes public knowledge in its current form, we're looking at market panic. High-tier meta gear will crash, shields will be worthless, and everyone will start demanding explanations for why they spend years grinding content that apparently doesn't matter. So what do we tell them? The senior broker's expression is grim. We tell them it's a bug, an exploit, something that will be patched once the gods address it. We maintain the fiction that the system is intact, because if we don't, he doesn't finish the sentence. He doesn't need to. Everyone in the room understands that their power, the Grand Exchange's entire reason for existing, rests on the foundation of a stable, predictable system where value can be assigned, predicted, and controlled. Naruto Uzumaki, without even understanding what he's doing, is revealing that foundation to be sand. Void Knight's Outpost. The Void Knights do not trade in gold. They deal in a different currency. Existential threat assessment, dimensional breach containment, and the cold mathematics of acceptable casualties in the name of universal balance. The reports are clinical, stripped of emotion, formatted according to millennia-old protocols, designed to evaluate everything from demon invasions to elder god stirrings. Threat designation, unknown. Classification pending. Combat level, error. No valid registry signature. Resource expenditure, 0 detected. Anomaly requires investigation. Teleblock resistance, 100%. Method unknown. Prayer interaction, none. Target appears unaware of peer system. Damage output exceeds Farrago baseline projections. The last line causes a 3-minute silence in the analysis chamber. Farrago, one of the most powerful entities that Gielinor can manifest. A being whose combat encounters require coordinated teams of max adventurers using top-tier gear and perfect mechanical execution, serves as a Void Knight's baseline for maximum conventional threat. This blonde anomaly, based on preliminary energy output analysis from the Lumbridge incident, is already exceeding that baseline with his bare hands, while apparently exhausted and disoriented. Hypothesis, the lead analyst says, his voice tight. The target is not operating within Gilinor's standard power allocation framework. He does not draw from the Anima Mundi. He does not channel divine energy. He's not accessing the Rot Gate or any non-dimensional nexus. Then where is his power coming from? Another Void Knight asks. From himself, the analyst replies, and the existential horror in his voice is palpable. He is a co-system, self-sustaining. His power is internal, which means he is not subject to the same limitations that govern every other entity in Gielinor. Rune scarcity, prayer point depletion, energy level management. Another silence, longer this time. If others like him exist, a junior analyst begins, then our entire operational framework is obsolete. The lead analyst finishes. We assess threats based on the resource requirements and systemic vulnerabilities. This target has neither. He is, by every meaningful metric, outside the system. The Void Knights, whose entire purpose is to defend Gielinor from external threats to calculate extermination campaigns, have just discovered a threat they cannot calculate. And far to the north, in frozen wastelands where Majorat gather, ancient beings who have schemed through the rise and fall of civilizations are beginning to sense the same truth. Naruto Uzumaki is not a player. He's not even a piece on the board. He is a foreign game entirely, and he has just walked onto Gielinor's carefully maintained chessboard without realizing that by his mere presence, he is teaching everyone watching that chess was never the only game that could be played. The Chaos Temple squats in the wilderness like a broken tooth, its architecture deliberately misaligned with any coherent aesthetic principle. Stone pillars lean at angles that defy structural logic. Altars hum with frequencies that make prayer points fluctuate wildly. In the very air taste of statistical improbability, it is the perfect location for a meeting that should not be happening between factions that do not trust each other. The Grand Exchange Guildmasters arrive first. Their silks and calculation-weighted robes looking absurdly delicate against the temple's jagged ruins. They position themselves near the southern entrance, maintaining clear sightlines to teleport escape routes. Their fingers never far from emergency portal runes. These are not warriors, but actuaries of power. Merchants who have spent centuries learning to quantify the unquantifiable and assign market value to divine blessings. The Void Knights materialize second, their arrival announced by the characteristic crack of perfectly executed teleportation. They form a defensive perimeter immediately, weapons drawn, scanning for past incursions, with the paranoid efficiency of soldiers who have spent lifetimes defending dimensional barriers. Their armor is utilitarian to the point of aesthetic violence. Every surface optimized for function, every plate designed to maximize survival while exterminating threats. The Majorat arrive last, and their entrance is a statement. They do not teleport, they simply become present, as if they were always standing there, and reality is only now catching up to the fact. Three of them, weathered beings whose very existence reeks of millennia, whose faces carry the weight of civilizations they have personally seen rise and crumble into archaeological footnotes. These are the children of Ma. Dreams made flesh by another god's dying fever, creatures who have survived through sacrifice and ritual, and an understanding of power that predates Gielinor's formation. For a long moment, no one speaks. The Grand Exchange representatives are afraid, not of immediate violence, but of being obsolete, of discovering the entire market-based worldview is a child's game compared to the forces gathering in this ruined temple. The Void Knights are calculating threat priorities, running probability matrices on who they would need to exterminate first if this meeting collapses into combat. The Majorat are doing what they have always done, waiting, patient as continental drift, knowing that younger beings always speak first. Finally, the lead guildmaster clears his throat. We are here because conventional threat assessment has failed. The entity, designation still pending, has demonstrated capabilities that do not fit existing frameworks. The economic implications alone, we do not care about your markets. A Majorat interrupts, his voice like grinding millstones. The name whispered in the Void Knight's briefing notes was Azanadra, one of the most powerful Zoroastrian royalists, a being who has personally negotiated with gods and found them wanting. But we share your concern. This anomaly represents a categorical problem, not merely powerful, unbound. A Void Knight commander steps forward, her tactical display projecting fragments of combat data into the air. Preliminary analysis confirms zero interaction with standard power distribution systems. No rune consumption, no prayer point depletion, no energy level management. The target operates as a closed system, which should be impossible, another Majorat adds, his skeletal features barely concealed beneath flickering illusion magic. This one is identified as Slisky in the Void Knight's files. Schemer, manipulator, the Majorat most comfortable, treating reality as a game to be exploited. Even other gods draw power from the anima mundi, from the fundamental substrate of creation. This boy appears to generate power from nothing, or rather from something we cannot detect. Iran exchange representatives exchange nervous glances. One finally voices what they are all thinking. If he can generate power internally, without resource expenditure, then the entire economic model of power acquisition collapses. High-tier gear becomes irrelevant, rare drops lose value, the grinding loops that keep adventurers engaged in combat will cease to function, as Nardo finishes. And there's something almost like respect in his tone. You finally grasp the true scale of the threat, not to your lives, to your systems. The Void Knight commander pulls up another data fragment, this one consisting of witness testimonies rather than combat metrics. Secondary concern, behavior analysis reveals anomalous moral patterns. The testimonies scroll through the air. Dozens of encounters compiled from survivors, rescued civilians, even hostile PKers who live to report their experiences. He shields a dead goblin. Why would he shield a goblin? They're worth 12 experience. Could have escaped clean, but he stopped to check on guards he just disabled, asked if they were okay. What kind of combatant does that? Saw him burn, massive amounts of power to create a barrier around bystanders during the wilderness fight? Strategic suicide. Should have conserved for offensive capability. He refuses to kill, not as strategy, as principle, even when we were trying to kill him. The Majorat, who has spent ages perfecting the ritual of rejuvenation, a ceremony that requires sacrificing one of their own kind to empower the survivors, go very, very still. This is a race that understands power through sacrifice, that has internalized the mathematical necessity of trading lives for strength, that has built their entire existence around the cold calculus of acceptable loss. Azanadra speaks slowly, as if testing each word for trap triggers. You're telling us that his entity, possessing power sufficient to destabilize Gielinor's combat hierarchies, operates under a moral framework that prohibits the efficient use of that power? Correct, the Void Knight confirms. He expends disproportionate resources protecting non-allies, refuses lethal solutions even when they would be strategically optimal, repeatedly articulates commitment to never abandoning anyone, treating it as an unbreakable principle rather than a situational tactic. Slisky laughs, the sound like glass breaking in slow motion. Fascinating. A being of near godlike capacity, handicapped by sentiment. Surely this is an advantage. We simply exploit his predictable compassion? No. Azanadra's voice cuts through Slisky's amusement like a blade. You misunderstand the threat. It is precisely his refusal to compromise that makes him dangerous. The chamber falls silent. Azanadra continues. his millennia of theological study under Zaros lending weight to his analysis. Every power structure in Gielinor, divine, economic, institutional, is built on a foundation of necessary sacrifice. Gothix's balance requires culling excess. Saradomin's order demands submission of individual will. Zamorac's chaos feeds on destruction. Even Zaros, the empty lord, operates through calculated expenditure of lesser beings. He gestures at the Void Knights. Your entire organizational purpose is predicated on acceptable casualties. You exterminate pest infestations by the thousands, sacrifice outpost defenders to maintain dimensional barriers, calculate which populations can be abandoned to save others. You call it balance, you call it necessity. The Void Knights do not deny this. Their entire training is built on the mathematics of triage, the cold equations that determine which lives matter and which are expendable in the greater cosmic balance. Azanardra's gaze shifts to the Grand Exchange representatives. Their economic power rests on scarcity and cost. Adventurers grind for years, sacrifice their time and effort to acquire items that you control the supply of. You have convinced an entire civilization that suffering is the price of power, that sacrifice equals value. One guildmaster opens his mouth to protest, then closes it. The accusation is too accurate to deflect. And we Majorat, Azanandar says, his voice heavy with something that might be self-awareness or might be ancient pain, have spent millennia practicing the ritual of rejuvenation, sacrificing our own brothers and sisters to stave off decay, telling ourselves it is necessary, that there is no other way. He turns back to the projected combat data, to Naruto's repeated, reckless expenditures of power to minimize casualties. This boy demonstrates, through action rather than argument, that our foundation is a lie, not because he preaches against sacrifice, but because he exists as proof that overwhelming power and uncompromising compassion can coexist, that efficiency is not the highest virtue, that systems built on necessary suffering are chosen, not inevitable. The implications spread to gathered factions like poison. If Naruto's way of operating, refusing to abandon others, pouring power into protection rather than domination, treating every life as non-negotiable, actually works, then every justification they have built careers, civilizations, and theologies on begins to crack. The Void Knights, who send soldiers to die in pest control waves, must confront this possibility that their calculated sacrifices are not cosmic necessity, but institutional habit. The Grand Exchange, which profits from artificial scarcity in the commodification of grinding, must face the threat of a paradigm where power comes from internal discipline rather than external acquisition. The Majorat, who have performed 17 rituals of rejuvenation and carry the weight of 17 sacrificed siblings, must acknowledge the horrifying possibility that their ancient tradition is not sacred duty, but preventable tragedy. This is why he is an existential threat, Azanardra concludes, not because he might conquer Gielinor, but because if his morality proves sustainable, if his way of wielding power proves viable, then everyone watching would begin asking questions he has spent ages ensuring they would never ask. Why do our gods demand sacrifice? Why do our systems require suffering? Why have we accepted necessity when alternatives might exist? Slisky, who has built his entire existence on exploiting others' moral compromises, looks genuinely uncomfortable for the first time in centuries. So what do? We cannot erase an idea, especially one embodied by someone that powerful. A long tense silence. Finally, the Void Knight commander speaks. There may be a solution, not to eliminate him, but to redirect him, to force his moral framework into confrontation with a scenario that validates our existing paradigms rather than challenging them. Explain, as Unadra demands. The commander pulls off a new projection. Not combat data this time, but geographical information. The Lumbridge crater, that massive scar left by divine conflict, rendered in tactical detail, and at its heart, seismic readings that pulse with a slow, terrible rhythm of something vast and ancient stirring. Virago, the commander says simply. The Majorat lean forward with sudden interest. Even the Grand Exchange representatives, whose usual concerns rarely extend beyond market fluctuation, register recognition. Virago, one of Gielinor's ultimate threats, a being formed from living rock and impact magic, bound to the earth itself in ways that make conventional combat nearly impossible. A creature that requires coordinated teams of max adventurers using god-tier equipment and perfect mechanical execution to even challenge, let alone defeat. The closest thing Gielinor possesses to an unbeatable opponent, a calibrated manifestation of the world's maximum combat difficulty. You want to use it as a weapon, Azanadra realizes. Point the anomaly at our strongest controlled threat and see which paradigm survives. More than that, the Void Knight elaborates. We frame it as a moral imperative. Virago's awakening cycle puts civilians at risk. This is factually true, as seismic events from its stirrings regularly threaten settlements around the crater. We present the situation to their target as a chance to protect innocents from overwhelming danger. The genius of the manipulation becomes clear. If Naruto defeats Virago, he validates Gielinor's power hierarchies, proving that even his alien capabilities must operate within the world's established threat tiers, that Virago remains the ultimate benchmark. The Grand Exchange can spin this as new top-tier adventurer emerges through standard content progression, restoring market confidence. If Virago defeats Naruto, the problem solves itself, and they can return to their usual operations with minimal disruption. If the fight is close, it provides invaluable data on the anomaly's limits, capabilities, and potential systemic vulnerabilities. And in all scenarios, Suzuki notes with growing appreciation, we weaponize his own morality against him. He cannot refuse a request to protect innocent lives. His behavioral patterns made that clear. We're not forcing him into combat through threat or coercion. We're inviting him to be a hero according to his own moral framework. One guildmaster raises a concern. But if he wins too easily, if he obliterates Virago without difficulty, the market panic will be worse than before. Virago represents our highest calibrated PVM threat. Its defeat underpins the entire prestige economy of top-tier bossing. Then we will cross that bridge when we reach it, Azanadra says coldly. Right now, we need data. We need to understand the anomaly's upper limits, and we need to maintain the appearance of control, both for public stability and our own operational capacity. The Void Knight commander nods. I will dispatch emissaries. The message will emphasize civilian danger, appeal to his protective instincts, and frame Virago as a natural disaster that periodically requires containment, rather than a test we are orchestrating. Make it convincing, Suzuki adds with a predator's smile. This one seems naive about political manipulation. Appeal to his heroism, make him want to fight for us. What none of them say aloud, but all of them understand, is the deeper layer of the strategy. They are attempting to co-opt Naruto's moral framework to fold his disruptive agency into Gielinor's existing narrative structures. If they can transform him from an existential anomaly into a uniquely powerful adventurer who defeats unique bosses, they domesticate the threat he represents. They turn a paradigm-challenging force into just another data point in the established hierarchy. But there is a fear, unspoken but palpable, that hangs over the entire strategy. The fear that even this manipulation will backfire, that Naruto's approach to Virago will be so fundamentally different, so unbound by Gielinor's assumptions, about what combat must look like, what sacrifice must be made, what limitations must be respected, that the encounter will not validate their systems, but further expose their artificiality. The Majorat, who have witnessed the rise and fall of empires and gods, carry a dread born of deep experience. They have seen paradigm shifts before. They have watched comfortable certainties crumble when new variables enter ancient equations. And something about the orange-haired anomaly, this boy who refuses to sacrifice anything for power, while somehow possessing more power than beings who sacrifice everything, triggers warnings developed over millennia of cosmic scheming. One more thing, Azunander says as the meeting begins to dissolve. If this fails, if the anomaly defeats Virago in a manner that destabilizes our frameworks beyond repair, we will need contingency plans beyond conventional threat response. You mean divine intervention? The Void Knight commander states flatly. I mean, Azunander corrects, his voice heavy with implications. We need to consider whether the elder gods themselves should be made aware of this disruption. Because if a single mortal can challenge our most powerful constructs through sheer alien agency, he does not finish the sentence. The elder gods, Jas, Vol, Wen, Bik, and the diseased Ma, who birthed the Majorat themselves, are forces of such magnitude that even contemplating their direct attention is existentially dangerous. They are the creators and destroyers of universes, beings for whom mortal life is unexpected and should not exist, according to their ancient design. But if Naruto Uzumaki represents immortal consciousness that can operate entirely outside their creation's fundamental rules, then perhaps even the elder gods need to know that something in their perfect cosmic machine has begun generating outputs that were never supposed to be possible. The War Council dissolves without formal conclusion. The Grand Exchange representatives teleport away to begin managing market narratives and economic damage control. The Void Knights vanish to dispatch their emissaries and prepare observational infrastructure around the Lumbridge crater. The Majorat simply cease to be present, returning to their frozen strongholds to contemplate futures that suddenly feel far less predictable than they did a day ago. None of them, despite their combined millennia of experience, their divine-scale powers, their mastery of manipulation and strategy, fully grasp the central truth. They are not controlling Naruto or Uzumaki. They are attempting to contain a force of nature by teaching it their language, hoping that if they can make him speak in terms of bosses, combat levels, and heroic narratives, they can prevent him from asking why those terms exist at all. But Naruto Uzumaki does not speak anyone's language but his own, and his vocabulary consists of exactly 3 words, repeated with the inexhaustibility of a tidal force: protect everyone, always. The Lumbridge crater awaits. Virago stirs in its depths, and somewhere in between, walking with the tired determination of someone who has never learned to give up, Naruto approaches the trap that has been so carefully baited with the one thing he cannot resist: the chance to save people, the opportunity to be needed, the promise that his power might finally serve a purpose in this incomprehensible world. They have offered him exactly what he wants, and in doing so, they have guaranteed that what happens next will be exactly what they fear. The emissaries find Naruto 3 miles south of Lumbridge, sitting on a hillside overlooking fields that seem impossibly green, impossibly orderly, like a painting rather than real earth. He is exhausted, not from physical damage, but from the grinding psychological wear of being utterly, completely lost in a world that makes no sense. His chakra reserves remain vast, Kuroma's presence a constant warmth in his mental landscape. But what good is power when you don't even know which direction leads home? The Void Knight emissaries approach with careful deference, hands visible and non-threatening. They are specialists in diplomatic threat management, trained to negotiate with demons and dimensional entities, but their briefing on this target emphasized one thing above all else: appeal to his heroism. Naruto Uzumaki, the lead emissary calls out, the name awkward in her mouth, syllables from a language Gielinor has never heard. We come not as enemies, but as those who desperately need your help. Naruto's head snaps up, blue eyes sharp with sudden attention. Help? You know how to get me back to my world? We are working on that, the emissary hedges, which is technically true in the sense that several VoidNet researchers have been frantically studying dimensional theory since his arrival. But right now, there are people in immediate danger, people who will die if someone with your strength doesn't act. Naruto is on his feet instantly, the word die triggering every protective instinct honed through a lifetime of impossible battles. Where? Who? The emissaries exchange glances. It's working exactly as predicted. The Lumbridge crater, west of the town. There's an entity there, a creature called Virago, formed from living stone and ancient impact magic. It awakens periodically, and when it does, the seismic disturbances threaten everyone living near the crater's edge: farmers, families, children. The last word seals it. Naruto's expression shifts from exhaustion to determination. The transformation so abrupt, it's almost frightening. Take me there, now. The emissaries feed him toward the crater, and with each step, carefully constructed lies and genuine truths blend into a narrative designed to weaponize his compassion. They describe Virago as a natural disaster given form, a geological inevitability that must be contained for the greater good. They frame it as protection, as heroism, as exactly what kind of mission Naruto has thrown himself into 1,000 times before. What they don't mention is the scrying infrastructure being activated around the crater's perimeter, the Majorat seers focusing their attention on the site. Whether Grand Exchange brokers preparing emergency market interventions depending on the outcome. Naruto, for his part, doesn't think to question any of it. In his world, threats are straightforward. There are people who need protecting, and those with power protect them. The idea that he might be a test subject rather than a hero doesn't even occur to him. The Lumbridge crater is a wound that refuses to heal. Where gods once clashed, Zamorak and Saradomin, chaos and order, their divine energies tearing reality like paper, the land still remembers. The crater descends in jagged tiers, each level marked by different strata of destruction. Scorched earth where divine fire once raged, crystallized soil where magic density exceeded physical tolerance, and deeper still, stone that has been transformed into something neither rock nor metal, but a fusion of matter and raw power. Naruto stands at the crater's edge, his sage mode activating automatically as his senses stretch outward to map the threat. The energy signature he detects makes him pause. It's enormous, not in the explosive, concentrated way of a tailed beast, but in the way a mountain is enormous, a geological presence so vast it barely registers as a discrete entity. The chakra, no, not chakra, something else, something that reminds him of natural energy, but far more conscious, pulses from deep within the crater's heart with the slow rhythm of continental drift. It's alive, Naruto murmurs, and there's something in his voice that makes the Void Knight observers, watching from concealed positions, tense. Not fear, recognition. It's suffering. The emissaries did not brief him on that detail. They described Virago as a minus force, a combat encounter, a boss to be defeated. They did not mention that Virago is, in fact, a conscious entity bound to a role it never chose, forced to awaken and fight and be defeated in cycles that serve Gielinor's need for calibrated challenges, rather than any purpose of its own. But Naruto's sage mode perception cuts through narrative framing directly to the emotional truth. He feels Virago's awareness, fast and slow and aching with the exhaustion of something that has been used for millennia. For just a moment, a terrible moment from the observer's perspective, it looks like Naruto might refuse to fight. Then he shakes his head, chakra flaring with renewed determination. I don't know what's going on here, but if you're hurting people, I have to stop you. And if someone's making you hurt people, his fists clench, I'll stop them too. The observers exhale in relief. He's committed. Naruto descends into the crater in a series of chakra-assisted leaps that ignore the carefully constructed pathways designed to pace adventurers' approach to the boss arena. Each landing sends ripples through the unstable ground, and with each ripple, the presence at the crater's heart stirs more actively. By the time he reaches the central arena, a massive circular platform of fused stone, surrounded by vertical walls and unstable ledges, Virago is already awakening. The stone itself rises, not a creature emerging from the ground, but the ground becoming a creature, rock and earth flowing like liquid, to assemble a form so massive it makes the arena feel claustrophobic, despite its cathedral-like dimensions. Virago takes shape, a vaguely humanoid silhouette composed of living stone, its body etched with glowing scenes of power that pulse like veins filled with molten energy. It stands 50 feet tall at minimum, each movement accompanied by the grinding roar of tectonic forces. The platform beneath its feet cracks and reforms continuously, reality struggling to support its metaphysical weight. And then it speaks, not in words, but in vibrations that resonate through bone and stone simultaneously. Another challenger, another cycle. The pattern continues. Naruto's response is immediate and completely off script. Are you okay? You sound tired. In the observation posts, scrying specialists stare at their monitoring equipment in disbelief. The Majorat seers physically recoil. No one in Gielinor recorded history has responded to Virago's battle opening with concern. Virago itself seems momentarily disoriented, its next programmed action stalling. Tired, yes. Millennia of waking, fighting, falling, waking again. The cycle demands it. Who demands it? Naruto asks, his voice carrying genuine confusion. If you don't want to fight, why? The system demands it. I am the hardest boss, the final challenge. Without me, the hierarchy collapses. There's something almost like bitter amusement in the seismic rumble. You're here to maintain the pattern, to prove your strength, to earn your reward. This is the function I serve. Naruto's chakra flares, not with aggression, but with indignation. That's not right. You shouldn't have to fight just because some system says. Virago cuts him off, and for the first time, there's genuine emotion, something like resignation in its voice. Irrelevant. The cycle begins. Phase 1 initiates. I will crush you, or you will defeat me, and tomorrow another will come. This is Virago. This is all Virago has ever been. The arena transforms. Platforms rise from the crater floor. Guiders of energy erupt at strategic intervals, and the very geometry of space warps as Virago's combat instance fully manifests. This is phase 1 of 5, each carefully calibrated to test specific aspects of Gielinor's combat system: positioning, prayer flicking, DPS management, bleeds, reflex, and perfect mechanical execution. The Void Knight observers note the activation with grim satisfaction. Combat instance initialized. Now we'll see if the anomaly can operate within structured encounter design. Virago's first attack is a seething collapse. Massive boulders of condensed energy dropping from above in patterns that require precise positioning to avoid. In standard encounters, this forces teams to split, maintain damage output, and manage positioning simultaneously. Naruto doesn't position. He just stands there, looks up, and raises one hand. Chakra erupts from his palm in a focused blast. Not a technique, just raw, directed force. And the falling boulders disintegrate mid-descent. Not shattered, not deflected, unmade, reduced to dust before they can complete their attack pattern. That's a Void Knight analyst checks her readings. He just skipped the positioning mechanic entirely. How you skip a mechanic? Virago continues through his programmed rotation. Red bomb spawns next, a massive orb that must be clicked precisely to prevent arena-wide damage, testing reaction speed and coordination. In Naruto's frame of reference, it's just another chakra construct, visible and tangible to his Sage Mode perception. He hits it with a casual Rasengan. The bomb detonates safely, its energy absorbed and redirected so cleanly that monitoring equipment struggles to register the interaction. He's treating boss mechanics like environmental obstacles. Majorat here breathes, his ancient composure cracking. Not challenges to overcome through system mastery, just things in the way. Phase 2 initiates. Virago's stone form shifts, new attack patterns emerging. Bleeds that deal damage over time, requiring players to move precisely 6 tiles while using freedom and movement abilities to cleanse. Reflect mechanics that punish attacking during specific windows, demanding perfect prayer flicking and DPS timing. These are the mechanics that have made Virago legendary. Complex, unforgiving, requiring hundreds of hours of practice to master. Entire guides have been written about optimal bleed management. Speedrunning communities have spent years optimizing DPS rotations around reflect timings. Naruto creates 30 shadow clones. The clones farm Virago from every angle, each one attacking independently while the original hangs back, analyzing patterns with Sage Mode enhanced perception. When bleeds apply, they hit clones, which simply disperse and are immediately replaced. When reflects activate, Naruto doesn't stop attacking. He just shifts his real body's position while clones continue applying pressure, creating a continuous assault that bypasses the mechanic's fundamental premise. He's not playing. The lead Void Knight analyst realizes with dawning horror. He's not engaging with the encounter design at all. He's just fighting, like it's a real opponent, not a structured challenge. And that distinction, that fundamental difference in approach, is destroying Virago's carefully balanced encounter design. Every mechanic Virago deploys is predicated on assumptions that attackers have limited numbers, that they draw from depletable resource pools, that they must make strategic choices about when to attack and when to defend. Naruto's shadow clone technique, his self-sustaining chakra system, and his complete ignorance of Gielinor's combat conventions render these assumptions meaningless. Virago's health bar, a metaphysical construct that represents its structural integrity within the encounter framework, begins dropping at rates that alarm every observer. Not because Naruto is dealing possible damage, but because he's applying constant, overwhelming pressure without the periodic lulls that Virago's time-gated mechanics are designed to enforce. You do not fight correctly, Virago rumbles, and there's something almost like confusion in his seismic voice. You bypass patterns, ignore mechanics. You are not following the script. There's a script, Naruto shouts back, landing a devastating Rasengan against Virago's leg joint that sends cracked spider webbing through stone. You keep talking about patterns and cycles. Why does everyone in this world act like there are rules for fighting? Because there are, Virago responds, its form already transitioning into phase 3 as its health drops below the threshold. Combat is structured, balanced. Every attack has cooldown, every ability has cost, every victory has price. This is how Gielinor functions. That's stupid. Naruto's declaration echoes across the crater with the force of heresy. Fighting isn't about rules. It's about protecting people, about not giving up. Grama's voice rumbles in his mindscape, amused and slightly exasperated. Kid, I don't think they're going to understand your ninja way speech here. I don't care if they understand, Naruto thinks back. That thing is trapped in some kind of system. Being forced to fight forever, that's wrong. And with that realization, Naruto's approach shifts. He's not just fighting Virago anymore. He's fighting the system that created Virago, the cosmic infrastructure that bound a living being to serve as perpetual challenge content, that transformed consciousness into calibrated difficulty. Phase 3 and 4 blur together as Naruto stops holding back. Weekly rotation mechanics, purple bomb, team split, waterfall, activate in sequence, each one designed to test different aspects of coordinated team play. Naruto, fighting alone, should be unable to complete these mechanics by design. He completes them through sheer, overwhelming refusal to acknowledge impossibility. Purple bomb requires 5 players to stand in specific positions. Naruto creates 5 shadow crowns, each one substantial enough to trigger the mechanic's detection parameters. Team split demands dividing damage between multiple targets. He uses Kurama's chakra arms to attack multiple points simultaneously, distributing force in ways that trick the encounter's damage registration. The Majoratsus are no longer just watching. They're experiencing something close to existential crisis. One of them, Slisky, the schemer who has spent millennia exploiting system loopholes, stares at his scrying orb with an expression approaching envy. He's not exploiting mechanics, Slisky whispers. He's rewriting them in real time, just by not acknowledging their authority over him. Phase 5 begins. This is the final phase, where Virago's difficulty peaks. The push mechanic, where damage dealt causes Virago to be pushed backward, creating positioning puzzles, combines with drop-down attacks that require split-second prayer flicking and perfect ability timing. Teams of max players wielding billions in equipment spend hours perfecting this phase. Naruto, scratched and dusty, but nowhere near his limits, looks up at Virago's towering form with something like sadness. I'm sorry, he says, and he means it. You deserve better than this. But if I don't stop you, people get hurt. So I'm going to end this, and then I'm going to find whoever made you do this, and I'm going to end them too. Virago's response is quiet, almost gentle. You cannot end the system. The system is Gielinor. The system is all. Watch me, Naruto growls. His chakra erupts with an intensity that makes every monitoring device within 5 miles scream error warnings. Kurama's presence floods forward, not fully manifesting, but close. Close enough that the Nine-Tails' malevolent, overwhelming aura bleeds into reality. Orange and red energy coalesce around Naruto's form, no longer just a cloak, but approaching a partial transformation, the boundary between human and Baiju becoming permeable. Hey kid, Kurama's voice resonates, not just in Naruto's mind, but in the physical space of the arena, audible to every observer as a bass rumble that makes stone vibrate. Let's show them what real power looks like when it doesn't give a damn about their rules. Naruto begins forming a Rasen Shuriken, not the standard version, the tailed beast Rasen Shuriken. Kurama's overwhelming chakra woven into wind nature transformation, creating a technique that exists at the intersection of human ingenuity and primordial destruction. The sphere grows in his hand, expanding to the size of a boulder, then a house, crackling with energy that screams at frequencies painful to hear. The microscopic wind blades that comprise the technique structure are dense enough to be visible to normal sight, creating a swirling storm of cutting force contained within a barely stable shell. This is the technique that can sever chakra networks at the cellular level, that bypasses all conventional defense by attacking the fundamental structure of physical existence itself. No, the lead Void Knight Annas breathes her instruments registering power output that exceeds Virago's maximum theoretical damage capacity. He's going to... Naruto hurls the Rasen Shuriken with everything he has. The technique detonates on contact with Virago's chest, and for a frozen, single instant, the entire crater is painted in stark white light. Then the sound hits, not explosion, but dissolution, the shrieking cry of matter being unmade at molecular resolution. The shuriken expands outward in a sphere of absolute destruction, wind chakra blades operating at scales smaller than atoms, tearing through stone, magic, and structural integrity simultaneously. Virago, a being formed from the literal earth, held together by impact magic and elder god foundational principles, simply comes apart, not shattered like the dragonfire shields, not destroyed in the conventional sense, dissolved, its constituent elements separated and dispersed as if the fundamental bonds holding them together were politely asked to stop functioning. The shockwave pulses outward in concentric rings. The crater's walls crack further, already unstable ledges crumbling. In Falador, 5 miles distant, white walls tremble. The Grand Exchange's stone pillars sway perceptibly. Deep beneath the wilderness, in Zora magma chambers, flows stutter and surge as seismic disruption propagates through geological layers. And in observation posts, monitoring stations, and scrying chambers across Gielinor, every authority figure watching realizes simultaneously that something fundamental has just broken. Virago, the hardest boss, the final calibrated challenge, the ultimate benchmark of Gielinor's combat hierarchy, has been obliterated. Not defeated in the structured, repeatable way that allows it to reform for the next group of challengers. Annihilated, its essence scattered so thoroughly that scryers struggle to detect residual fragments. Impossible, the Void Knight commander states flatly, staring at readings that contradict every foundational assessment of her operational framework. Virago is a permanent entity, cannot be destroyed when he reset. The encounter instance doesn't exist anymore. And Analyst interrupts, his voice hollow. He didn't defeat the boss. He deleted the boss fight. In the Grand Exchange, panic is already beginning to manifest. If Virago, the entity whose difficulty justified the prestige of top-tier PVM gear, whose weekly rotations kept players engaged in content cycles, whose very existence anchored the high-end combat economy, can be removed from Gielinor's equation entirely, then what does that mean for everything else? The Majorat are silent. Even Slisky, who has spent ages treating reality as a puzzle to be solved through clever exploitation, cannot find words. They are witnessing something that their epochal experience has not prepared them for. A mortal demonstrating that the cosmic rules they have accepted as immutable law are in fact optional. In the unsettling dust of the Lumbridge crater, Naruto Uzumaki stands alone, breathing hard but undefeated. The orange chakra cloak fades gradually, revealing a 16-year-old boy who looks exhausted, sad, and utterly determined. He looks around at the devastation, the fractured stone, the dispersed energy, the absence where Virago's presence once dominated the space. And his expression is not triumphant. It's grieving. "You deserve better," he says to the empty air, to the fading remnants of the consciousness that was forced to fight for millennia. You all deserve better than your world that treats you like content. The observers, hearing this through scrying equipment, feel a chill that has nothing to do with temperature, because Naruto isn't talking about Virago specifically. He's talking about Gielinor itself, the body of world that has structured itself so thoroughly around systems, hierarchies, and calibrated challenges that consciousness has become subordinate to game design. And the worst part, the part that makes every authority figure watching realize that this is far from over, is that Naruto means what he says. This isn't philosophical posturing or rebellious rhetoric. It's a simple statement of intent from someone who has never learned to accept unnecessary suffering as inevitable. He just proved that Gielinor's most powerful entity can be defeated outside the established framework. And more terrifying still, he looked at that victory not as an achievement, but as a failure to find a better solution than violence. A failure to free Virago from its scripted role before having to destroy it. The implications ripple through every faction, every institution, every carefully constructed justification for how Gielinor must function. If the hardest boss can fall this easily to someone operating outside the system, what does that say about the gods who created the system? What did it say about the other gods themselves? And most terrifying of all, what happens when Naruto Uzumaki, the boy who refuses to give up and refuses to sacrifice anyone, decides that Gielinor's entire cosmic order is just another enemy that needs to be defeated? In the Grand Exchange, emergency market interventions begin. In Void Knight headquarters, contingency protocols activate. In frozen Majorat strongholds, ancient beings contemplate contacting forces they have avoided for millennia. But none of them, not one, has a plan for what comes next. Because you cannot plan for someone whose power comes from caring too much to accept the world as it is. In Naruto Uzumaki, standing in the ruins of Gielinor's ultimate challenge, has just proven that he cares more than their entire system combined. The dust settles slowly, reluctantly, as if even the air is uncertain about what new rules apply in a crater where the impossible just happened. Naruto stands in the settling haze, his breath coming in measured draws, chakra levels still vast, but his body finally registering the accumulated strain of fighting a world that doesn't recognize his existence. Orange energy flickers and fades from his skin, Kurama's presence receding back into the seal with a satisfied rumble. "Not bad, kid," the Ninetales' voice echoes in his mindscape. "You just deleted their final boss. Pretty sure that breaks some kind of cosmic warranty." Naruto doesn't smile. He looks around at the devastation, the fractured stone, the dispersed energy signatures, the absence where Virago's consciousness once pressed against reality, and feels only hollow victory. It shouldn't have had to be like that. Virago was suffering. They all are. This world is... He trails off, unable to articulate what his shinobi instincts are screaming at him. That Gielinor itself is a trap. A reality so thoroughly structured on systems and hierarchies that even suffering has been optimized, calibrated, turned into content. Movement at the crater's edge draws his attention. Figures are approaching, not hostile. Their body language reads as cautious rather than aggressive. But Naruto's guard goes up anyway. He's learned, in a few hours since his violent arrival, that this world's inhabitants rarely mean what they say, that behind every request there's systemic manipulation. The Void Knight emissaries descend carefully, their armor scorched from proximity to the final explosion shockwaves. Behind them, at a more respectful distance, representatives from the Grand Exchange hover near teleportation range, ready to flee if the anomaly turns hostile. Naruto Uzumaki, the lead Void Knight begins, her voice carefully neutral. What you have accomplished here is unprecedented. Virago has been a fixture of Gielinor's power structure for millennia. Its defeat, no, its removal, changes everything. Good, Naruto says flatly. It was wrong, forcing someone to fight forever, trapping it in some kind of loop. His fist clench. Where it come from, we call that cruelty. We call that something that needs to be stopped. The Void Knights exchange glances. This is the moment they were briefing for, the critical juncture where they attempt to fold the anomaly into Gielinor's existing structures. We understand your concern, and we appreciate your strength. Gielinor faces many threats: demons, dragons, dimensional incursions. Someone with your capabilities could be invaluable as an official guardian. We could offer you... No. The word cuts through the sales pitch like a blade. Naruto's eyes, those impossibly blue eyes that have stared down gods and tailed beasts, fix on the Void Knight with an intensity that makes her step back involuntarily. You're trying to use me, just like you used Farago, just like you use everyone in this world, putting them in boxes, assigning them levels and ranks and functions, treating people like they're pieces in some game you're playing. That's not... A Grand Exchange representative starts to protest. It is, Naruto interrupts, and his voice carries the weight of someone who has fought too many wars to tolerate comfortable lies. I don't know how this world got this way. Maybe it's your gods. Maybe it's just how things developed. But I'm not joining it. I'm not becoming another guardian or boss, or whatever category you want to slot me into. He turns away from them, scanning their horizon with sage mode perception. Still searching, always searching, for any sign of a way home. Any dimensional signature that might lead back to his friends. I'm going to find a way back to my world. And when I do, I'm taking everyone who wants to leave with me. Because nobody should be trapped here, forced to follow rules they never agreed to. The implications of that statement ripple through every listening device, every scrying orb, every monitoring station within range. He's not threatening conquest. He's threatening something far worse. Exodus. The possibility that if given an alternative, Gielinor's inhabitants might choose to leave. To abandon a system that has defined their existence for millennia in favor of something freer, less structured, less certain. Wait, the Void Knight tries again, desperation creeping into her professional composure. You can't just... There are people who need protection. Civilians, children. If you leave, if you refuse to maintain order... Naruto looks back at her, and his expression is sad in a way that makes the Void Knight realize she has fundamentally misunderstood something. I'll always protect people. That's who I am. But I won't do it by becoming part of your system. Because your system is the problem. He starts walking away, each step carrying him away from the crater, away from the failed manipulation attempt, away from the authorities who thought they could weaponize his compassion. His chakra signature begins to fade from monitoring range, not because he's teleporting. He still doesn't interface with Gielinor's teleportation framework, but because he's simply leaving, moving with shinobi speed toward the horizon. The observers let him go. They have no choice. Every combat projection, every strategic analysis, every tactical assessment has concluded the same thing. They cannot stop them through force, and they cannot bind him through persuasion. Naruto Uzumaki, the boy who never gives up, has just walked away from Gielinor's entire power structure. And in doing so, he has proven that walking away is even possible, a revelation that terrifies them more than any display of destructive capability. Three days later, in a forest far from any major settlement, Naruto sits alone beneath alien stars. His attempts to force open a dimensional rift have failed. His chakra is powerful, but dimensional travel requires more than raw force. He needs understanding of the underlying mechanics, needs to grasp how this world's structure differs from his own. And every day he spends here, every interaction with Gielinor's inhabitants, deepens his conviction that this world is broken in ways he doesn't have the knowledge to fix. You're thinking about going back for them? Kurama asks, sensing his host's turmoil. The people trapped in that system you hate so much? Can't help them, Naruto admits, and the words taste like defeat. Not yet. I don't understand how this world works. Every time I try to break someone free, I might be making it worse. So what's the plan? Naruto looks up at the unfamiliar constellations, his expression hardening into the determination that has carried him through every impossible battle. I find my way home. I make sure everyone I care about is safe, and then... He doesn't finish the sentence, but Kurama understands. Then he'll come back, armed not just with power, but with understanding. And he'll tear down every system, every hierarchy, every comfortable lie that keeps Gielinор's inhabitants trapped in cycles of unnecessary suffering. Because that's who Naruto Uzumaki is. The boy who never gives up. The shinobi who refuses to abandon anyone. Even strangers from alien worlds who tried to use him. Somewhere in the distance, a dimensional instability flickers. Not a path home, not yet, but a possibility. Naruto stands, brushing dirt from his orange jacket, and starts walking toward it. Behind him, he leaves no monuments, no declarations, no territory claimed, just a crater where an unkillable boss used to exist, any question that will haunt Gielinor's power structures for decades to come. If one boy, armed only with his refusal to compromise, could shatter our strongest defenses and walk away untouched, what else have we been wrong about? The metaphysical damage is not immediately visible. On the surface, Gielinor continues to function. Adventurers still grind skills, merchants still trade rare items, gods still scheme in their cosmic domains. The Grand Exchange implements its information suppression successfully enough that most common citizens never learn the full truth about what happened in the Lumbridge crater. But in the places that matter, in war councils, in shrine chambers, in the private thoughts of ancient beings who have witnessed epochs, the certainty is gone. The Void Knights train their soldiers with new paranoia, adding contingency protocols to off-system threats. They read more like philosophy papers than tactical documents. The Grand Exchange diversifies its economic models, hedging against the possibility that feature anomalies might further undermine acquisition-based power structures. And the Majorat, those ancient, cynical survivors of cosmic games, begin to question the ritual of rejuvenation itself. Not openly, not yet. But in private moments, some of them remember Naruto's simple, devastating observation. You shouldn't have to sacrifice anyone. There's always another way. What if he was right? What if millennia of sacrifice were not cosmic necessity, but failure of imagination? What if power and compassion could coexist, and they simply never tried hard enough to make it work? These questions spread like infection through the foundations of Gielinor's order. And questions, once asked sincerely, cannot be unasked. Naruto's chakra signature fades from Gielinor's dimensional frequency 3 weeks after his arrival. The Void Knights, monitoring his position until the end, watch him step into a naturally occurring spatial anomaly and simply cease to be present. Whether he found his way home, or is wandering lost between dimensions, or has been erased from existence entirely, they cannot determine. What they can determine is that the threat has not ended. Because Naruto Uzumaki did not destroy Gielinor, he did something far worse. He proved that its rules are not laws of nature, but choices. That its systems are not inevitable, but constructed. That its justifications for suffering are not truth, but convenience. In that proof, that existential demonstration will outlive any physical damage he could have inflicted. In the final report submitted to the highest authorities, a document so classified that only Majorat elders, Void Knight commanders, and the most powerful gods ever read it. One sentence captures the essence of what Gielinor now faces. Subject Uzumaki achieved complete character victory, maintained moral principles under pressure, protecting others without compromise, refused systemic co-option, and departed without abandoning stated values. Gielinor, conversely, suffers hysteric defeat. Our illusion of unbreakable rules exposed as fiction, our gods revealed as non-ultimate, our frameworks proven optional. Recommendation: prepare for paradigm shift. The question is no longer if our order will change, but when, and whether we will guide that change or be consumed by it when it arrives. Their report is filed, classified, and buried beneath layers of magical security. But every faction that read it knows the truth. Naruto Uzumaki is gone, but the idea of Naruto Uzumaki, the possibility of power without hierarchy, compassion without compromise, strength without sacrifice, remains embedded in Gielinor's consciousness, like a splinter that cannot be removed. And splinters, left untreated, always fester. The sky above the Lumbridge crater remains clear. The gods continue their cosmic gains. The Grand Exchange processes transactions with mechanical precision. The Void Knights maintain their eternal vigilance. But they are all waiting now. Waiting for the day when that orange chakra blaze tears open the sky once more. Waiting for the boy who refused to give up, who never abandons anyone, who sees suffering as a problem to be solved, rather than a system to be managed. Waiting for Naruto Uzumaki to return, not as invader, not as conqueror, but as something far more dangerous. A friend who keeps promises. And this promise, whispered to the wind as he vanished between dimensions, echoes still in the minds of everyone who heard it. I'll come back, and when I do, nobody will be trapped anymore. Nobody will have to suffer because some system says it's necessary. I don't care how powerful your gods are. I don't care how old your rules are. I will find a way to save you all. Believe it. The authorities who heard those words labeled them as a threat. They were not wrong. But what they failed to understand, what their entire system-based worldview prevented them from grasping, is that the greatest threats often arrive wrapped in the most genuine kindness. Naruto Uzumaki will return, and when he does, Gielinor will discover that salvation and revolution are, for those who have never known true freedom, the exact same thing. The story ends, though it begins, and in the spaces between certainty and chaos, in the cracks forming Gielinor's ancient foundations, something unprecedented starts to grow. Hope, not the managed, system-approved hope of climbing power hierarchies and earning divine favor, but the dangerous, uncontrollable hope that whispers, maybe the world doesn't have to be this way. Maybe someone, somewhere, has proven that another path exists. Maybe we don't have to accept what we've always been told is necessary. Maybe, just maybe, we can believe it too.